Alright, hello Algebra 2. So this is the Chapter 10 review, and here's how this is going to work. In the description of the video below, there's a link to a Google Doc that you can open and follow along with what I'm doing on the whiteboards. Go ahead and take notes over that just like you normally would in class. The only difference is you don't technically have to write them on note cards because I don't have a way to check whether you wrote them on note cards or whether you wrote them on regular note paper or whether you're just using your book. So open book, open notes, open whatever. Hopefully this test shouldn't be too bad. I tried to keep it, relatively short, just hit the major things from chapter 10. So it's not that long. Hopefully it shouldn't be that bad. So the Google Doc is a copy of the review I'm about to go through, so go ahead and pause the video and open that up so that you can follow along with that. Once you're done with the video for the review, go ahead and email me and I will send you a link to the test. On that note, do not write in the Google Doc. Do not comment in the Google Doc. I'm pretty sure I set it up so that you won't be able to anyway, but even if you figure out a way to, please don't. So, it's the review anyway, so you're about to get all the answers anyway, so there would be no point in commenting on the Google Doc, but please don't draw on the Google Doc. Okay, so going to get right into this. I'm assuming by now you've opened up the Google Doc and we are ready to go. And these first couple, if you look at the directions, and that's why I said open up to the Google Doc, because I didn't write out all of the directions, because I figured it'd be redundant to have it on the whiteboards as well. So what we're looking for here is whether our sequence is arithmetic, geometric, or neither. And really the big thing is just not getting those things mixed around. So you probably want to jot down that arithmetic is your adding or subtracting to get to your next thing. And geometric is when you're multiplying or dividing to get to your next thing. So adding or subtracting is arithmetic, multiplying or dividing is geometric, neither of those is neither of those. So it's either arithmetic, geometric, or neither, and really the big thing there is just not getting those two mixed around. So adding is arithmetic, multiplying is geometric. So if we're looking at this one, we got 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, so we're multiplying by 2 to get to the next thing. And if that's not jumping out at you right away, you can go and say, okay, well, if we were adding, we'd be adding 2. Well, we're definitely not adding 2 every time. Okay, well, 2 times what would give me 4? Oh, 2. So we got times 2 times 2. Okay, this is geometric. That's geometric. And feel free to abbreviate with arith or geo, or you can cut that off there. So as long as I can tell whether you're writing arithmetic or geometric or neither, you're good. Okay. And this one, if we're looking at this one, if I'm looking at, well, am I adding? I would be adding 3 to get from 1 to 4, but that's not going to get me to 9. I would be multiplying by 4 to get from 1 to 4, but that's not going to get me to 9 either, so this is neither of those two things. There's definitely a pattern going on, because these are all perfect squares, so this is 1 squared, 2 squared, 3 squared, 4 squared, 5 squared, so there's definitely a pattern. It's just not an arithmetic or a geometric one. And then if we're looking at this last one, if we're going from 8 to 2, you could either be dividing by 4, but that's not going to work to get you to your next thing, or you could be subtracting 6. Ooh, hey, that one works. So if we subtract 6 and subtract 6 and subtract 6, oh, okay, so this is arithmetic. Because remember, arithmetic could be either adding or subtracting, because you could think about this either as subtracting 6 or as adding a negative 6. So either way, that's arithmetic. All right. So these first 3 we're just looking for, is it arithmetic, is it geometric, or is it neither of those things? These next ones we're getting into, okay, well now what do we do with it now that it is? So these ones we're finding the 15th term, and these are the 2 things you're probably going to want to jot down if you didn't already when we were going through the homework. So if it's arithmetic, we want this. If it's geometric, we want this, and in either case, a with a little n there, so a sub n is the term you're looking for. That's the term you're looking for. A sub 1 is your first term, whether it's here or up here. That's your first term. D is the number you're adding. Or if it's geometric, R is the number you're multiplying by. And N is the number of the term you want. So in this case, 15. So I know that's a lot of scribbling there. Hopefully you got this the first time when we went through this. So arithmetic, so a sub n is the number of the term you want. D is the number you're adding or subtracting to get to your next thing. If you're subtracting, it's negative. N is the number of the term you want. So in this case, 15. That minus 1 is always a minus 1. And a sub 1 is your first term. Geometric ones, a sub n is the number of the term that you want. A sub 1 is your first term. R is the number that you're multiplying by. N is still your 15, and that minus 1 is always a minus 1. Alright, and feel free to rewind the video if you didn't catch all of that. Okay, so as long as we've got those two things, most of what we're doing here is just plugging things in, but we do need to figure out first whether we want to plug it into this or this. So we're looking for, is it arithmetic or is it geometric? And these ones won't be neither. It'll be either this or this. So we're looking for, are we adding or are we multiplying? So this sure looks like we're multiplying by 2. So that makes it geometric, which means we want this one. So these, just watch out for which one you're plugging it into. So we want a sub 1, which is your first term, which is 3, times r, which is the number that you're multiplying by. So in this case, 2. To the n is 15, because we wanted the 15th term, minus 1. And watch out for order of operations is still a thing. So 15 minus 1, technically, if that's in the exponent, we're doing that first, so I'm just going to call that a 14. Now, watch out for my plug it into your calculator all at once, people. If you're plugging it all in, don't take 3 times 2 and then hit enter and take that to the 14th. You do not want 6 to the 14th. You don't want that. So either plug it in all at once, or plug in your exponent part first. So we're either going 3 times 2 to the 14th, whole thing at once, or you're going to the 14th and then taking it times 3. Don't take 6 to the 14th. You don't want that. That's an even bigger number than you've got. So if we have 2 to the 14th, oops, my exponent button is, I have to turn it that way. 2 to the 14th, which is 16,384. And then we're taking that times 3, which gives you about 49,152. Okay, so there's our 15th term. And again, these get big pretty fast. So at least for the geometric ones, I'm not going to ask you for like your 50th term, because chances are that would be too big for your calculator. Arithmetic ones, you could do like your 50th term. That'd be fine. Okay, speaking of arithmetic ones, this one's arithmetic. So this one, we want to make sure we're plugging it into this one. And watch out for, if you're going down, D is going to be negative. So if we're going down instead of up, this is going to be a negative 9. So we're going to have a negative 9 times your n is still 15, minus 1, plus your first term, which is 16. And again, order of operations are a thing, so we got negative 9 times 14 here, plus your 16. This one, technically, it won't matter whether you plug that into your calculator, right? Because you want this first anyway. So negative 9 times 14. Oops. Negative 9 times 14 gives you negative 126, plus 16 gives you negative 110. Alright, cool. So these ones, just watch out for whether you're using this or this, because you don't want to plug it into the wrong thing. So this is arithmetic ones, this is geometric ones, don't mix them up. Alright, and same sort of thing on these next ones, because this time we're looking for the sum of the first 15 terms, which are these two formulas, and again, we have one for arithmetic ones and one for geometric ones. A lot of the same symbols going on here, but don't mix them up. So S of n means your sum of your first n terms. N is, again, the number of the thing you want, so that's still going to be a 15. A sub 1 is still your first term. A sub n is the last term that you want. There's our 15th term, which conveniently we already found. And n is the number of the term you want. R is the number you're multiplying by. So most of these variables mean the same thing that they did in the last thing. Okay, and again, most of this, we're just plugging things in. So we want to figure out which one we want to plug it into first. Now, if you happen to recognize that this is the same as the one we had in problem number 4, yay, then that's geometric, so we're plugging it into this one. So we've got a sub 1 is our first term, so this is your first term, so that's 3, minus your first term, times r, which again is the number we're multiplying by, to the 15th, over 1 minus, and r is again the number you're multiplying by, so 2. Okay. And again, order of operations, so watch out for you don't want 6 to the 15th. Don't do that. You want 2 to the 15th first, and then you want to take that times 3. So 2 to the 15th, 2 to the 15th, and then we're taking it times 3. Gives you 98,304 over 1 minus 2 is negative 1. 3 minus that is going to give you negative 98,301. Divided by a negative 1 is just going to cancel out that negative. Should have left myself some more room. Hang on, I'm going to erase this stuff. So now I've got 98,301. Alright. And now I'm going to erase that and rewrite the other one. So this one, we want to watch out for. This one's arithmetic. So we want to make sure we're plugging this one into this top one here. So we've got our 15 on the outside. We've got our first term is 16. And then we want our 15th term. Now, if you happen to remember that we found our 15th term back here and it was negative 110, yeah, you could save yourself a step there. If you didn't happen to realize that and you went through and you found your 15th term again, that's fine. It's not going to hurt anything. It's just a little bit of extra work. And then we're dividing by 2. And again, order of operations. So 16 plus a negative 110 is negative 94 over 2 times 15 divided by 2 times 15 gives you a negative 705. And again, wouldn't hurt to double check and make sure that's a reasonable answer to get. So if we've got these numbers and they keep going down and we want our first 15, okay, yeah, that's going to keep going negative. That's going to keep... Right, I was just double checking that because that seemed a bit large for a negative, but if you want to double check any of these, feel free to go ahead and just find your first 15 terms and add them up. It takes a little bit longer, but that also works. If you want to do it that way, that's fine too. I was just doing that to double check because that seemed a little bit weird that was that far negative, but turns out that's right. Okay. Alright, now, these next couple, we're first looking for whether it converges or diverges, and then if it converges, we want to find the sum. So, if you don't remember what converging and diverging means, converging means our ratio, so whatever r is it's less than 1 and bigger than negative 1. So basically your number is getting smaller, and it's either getting smaller by a positive or smaller by a negative, but it's getting smaller. If it's not doing that, if it's staying the same, or if it's getting bigger, then it's diverging. So if we're looking at this one, and we're going from 125 to 25 to 5 to 1, okay, we're dividing by 5 every time. So that's converging. Convergent, I don't remember which term it used. Converging, convergent, yeah, same thing. Okay, and then if it converges, we want to find the sum. And again, a with a little 1 there, that's just our first term. So we got 125 there. Now, watch out for with that r, we don't want to say we're dividing by 5. We want to say what we're multiplying by instead. But if we're dividing by 5, that's the same thing as multiplying by a 1/5. So watch out for there, you want a 1/5, or if you turn that into a 0.2, that's fine. You just don't want to call that 5. So we got 125 divided by 1 minus 0.2 is 0.8. And 125 divided by 0.8 is 156.25. Cool. So that one's converging, or it's convergent, whichever term there, or if you just say con, you can ignore that whole ending thing, whether it's jing or gent. Okay, and then we've got our sum. So it's converging, and then we want to do this. If it's diverging, you don't have to do that bit. Okay, speaking of diverging, if we got something that's going 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, and it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, we're not going to be closer and closer to a certain sum. It's not going to be doing this. It's divergent. Like the book. Now, if you didn't happen to realize that and you plugged it in and you said, well, I've got 4 over 1 minus, well, I'm multiplying by 2. Oh, okay, you could probably figure out right away that that's not right. This thing is not going to add up to -4. So that's a pretty big giveaway that it's divergent and you don't need to do this. So if you get something that seems weird, double check and make sure your thing wasn't divergent to begin with. Alright, one more of these, and watch out for negatives. So this one, we are converging because we're getting smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller, and we're going from positive to negative, so we're going to need to watch out for that, but that's okay, we're still converging. So we just need to be bigger than that -1, and this one is, because we're either dividing by -2 or multiplying by -0.5. So whichever way you want to think about doing that. So we've got a sub 1, which is our 64. Should have left myself more room here. Over 1 minus, and then watch out for minus because it's part of our formula, and a negative because that's what we're multiplying by. And again, that's a -0.5, not a -2. So we want what we're multiplying by, not what we're dividing by. So you don't want to call this a dividing by 2. Okay, so then we got 64. Over 1 minus a -0.5 is 1.5. And 64 divided by 1.5 is 64, not 61.5. Gives you 42.6 repeating. Cool. Alright, so these ones converging or diverging, and then only if it's converging you want the sum. If it's diverging, it doesn't have sum. So if you get something weird for your sum, check and make sure you weren't diverging. Alright. Recursive formulas. And these ones we want the first, I think it was 5 terms. So we want the first 5 terms, and watch out for your first one's a freebie, because your first one is just this a sub 1 here. So your first one, we just want to repeat that 5 down here. And then if we want our next term, we're plugging that in here. So we got 2 times 5 minus 3. And when you're plugging that in, that's plugging that in for that whole thing, a sub n there. So that's where that 5 is going. So 2 times 5 is 10, minus 3 is 7. And then we're doing the same thing with 7. 2 times 7 is 14, minus 3 is 11. And then we're doing the same thing with 11. 2 times 11 is 22, minus 3 is 19. And one more time, we're doing the same thing but with a 19. 2 times 19 is 38, minus 3 is 35. So those are your first 5 terms. Same thing down here. And that one's our first term. First term is a freebie. Don't mess up the easy ones. And then we're taking that and we're plugging it in here. So we got 4 times a -3 plus 5. 4 times a -3 is a -12 plus 5 gives you a -7. And then we're plugging in -7 instead. 4 times -7 is a -28. And again, feel free to plug this part into your calculator. 4 times -7 is -28 plus 5 is a -23. And now we're plugging in -23. 4 times -23 is 4 times -23 is -92 plus 5 gives you -87. And one more, so we're plugging in -87. And 4 times -87 is -348 plus the 5 gives you -343. Alright, and those are your first 5 terms. Yeah, nothing awful going on there. So this first one, we want to expand the binomial. And remember, that means we want to use Pascal's triangle. And yes, I included a link to that in the description below. I don't expect you to have Pascal's triangle memorized. I mean, if you do, yay, I'm impressed, but no, you don't have to. Okay, so your fourth row of Pascal's triangle looks like, and I should have kept it up on the screen there. Your fourth row of Pascal's triangle looks like 1, 4, 6, 4, 1. Okay. 1, 4, 6, 4, 1. Okay, and once we've got that, we're filling in some m's, starting with an m to the fourth. So your 1 gets an m to the fourth, your 4 gets an m to the third, your 6 gets an m squared. So we're just counting it down, our exponents. M to the first. Technically, if you want to throw an m to the 0 on there, that's fine. It's not going to hurt anything. M to the 0 is just 1 anyway. And then we're doing the same thing with the y's, but in the opposite direction. So your 1 gets a y to the fourth. This gets a y to the third. This gets a y squared. This gets a y. That doesn't get a y. And then we're just filling in some pluses. So if this was a plus, everything is a plus. If it's a minus, it alternates. Minus, plus, minus, plus. If it's plus, though, everything is plus. Alright, and the ones where you're finding the whole thing, the exponent's not going to be much bigger than that, because these get long really fast. If we have something like a 9 here, you're just going to be finding one term. So if we just want the fifth term of 2x minus 3y to the ninth, and again, I just went ahead and wrote out the 9th row of Pascal's triangle. Again, I don't expect you to have that memorized. I mean, you could go through and find it yourself, but that's just a lot of work with not a whole lot of purpose behind it. So a link to that is also in the description along with the Google Doc. So we want our fifth term. So we want 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we've got 126 first of all. And then this time, instead of an m, we've got a 2x. To the, we would normally start with 9 here, so to the 9th, 8th, 7th, 6th, 5th, times a 3y, and watch out for it, that's a negative along with that 3y, to the 9th, 8th, 7th, 6th, 5th, 4th, and then we're just making that look nice. So we got 126 here, times 2 to the 5th is 32. And next to the 5th. Times, and watch out for, if you're plugging negative 3 to the 4th into your calculator, parentheses around the negative 3, and then hit your power button in the 4. So close your parentheses before you hit the 4, because we should end up with a positive there, because we've got a negative to an even power. Now, if you happen to know off the top of your head that that's 81, cool. And that gets a y to the 4th. And I should have left myself a little bit more room, because now we're taking 126 times 32 times 81. 126 times 32 times 81 gives you a big number. I'm just going to write that big number up here, because we don't need that stuff anymore. So we've got 326,592. So that just came from the 126 times the 32 times the 81. X to the 5th just hops on up here. Y to the 4th just hops on up here. So that's your 5th term. And that's why we're not going to go through and FOIL the whole thing if that's to the 9th. The 3rd, 4th, yeah, 3rd and 4th are what's going to be up here. We're not going to find the whole thing if it's to the 9th, because that's just long. Okay. Alright, and that is it for the review. So if you're feeling good about that, go ahead and email me and I will send you a link to the test. If there's anything you have questions about that you want to ask me about before the test, that's fine. And I will see you in the next chapter.